took what I want, but you find that everything they've got, you step forwards to my shadow, you are follow in my pattern.
Hello and welcome to the Ladies' Room. Today it is my great pleasure to have with me my old friend Krae Van Sickle, who is the co-founder of DrawdownEastEnd.org, and it's all about sustainability and what we as individuals can do to save our planet. And his partner and co-founder Darr Reilly, who gosh, you've been into this, you got your master's in architecture on passive solar design in 1976?
Yes.
You guys have both been into this for a really long time.
Yes.
You lived on an organic farm in 1970.
Yep.
Half the year there, half the year here?
Half the year in New York City when I was a kid running around with you and our
Frisbee
mutual friends.
Hill.
On Frisbee Hill,
Yeah.
exactly, Central Park.
And then I started the roller skating center, and you and
Carrie
became, you were Frisbee champions.
That's right.
And then you wound up doing shows at Madison Square Garden on roller skates.
Yep.
Frisbee shows on roller
we
skates.
did some of the most...
Krae, did you tell me about that? I don't think I know the roller skating part of you.
Oh, no.
No.
We did a show, I think it was in Philadelphia for Independence Day with you. That was one of the most spectacular and most interesting experiences I've ever done. I've done a lot of really interesting, spectacular stuff. Neil Sedaka was playing. There were like 2 million people. We were on this stage and the fireworks were going off behind us. We had this troupe of skaters and Frisbee players. It was really quite something.
The first outdoor skate we did in Central Park at night, when we went around the whole park, Harlem, down the big hill, when we skated into our center at Mineral Springs, fireworks started going off, and we thought they were for us. And it was the New York Philharmonic's first concert that night, but we thought they were for us.
Well, they were. It was the same thing. That when we were on the stage, the fireworks were going off. We figured it was just part of the rest. We had like palm trees and smoke and the light boom, and then boom, the fireworks went off too. It was like,
we had the best of it.
We had a really
now we got to bring the best back for our kids, so our kids have a sustainable planet. And there's so many things. Your event on Saturday was so amazing. I was sad that I got there late because the party the night before, I was moving slow that day. But you had so many people there. When did you start putting that together? That was an amazing event. You had the film, which, what's the name of the man? Garmeau?
Damon.
Damon Gameau.
Yeah.
That film was so beautifully done. Now you're going to show it again Friday night at Southampton Arts Center. Everyone, you must go see this film. It is beautifully done. It's so informational, educational, and entertaining. And
inspiring.
Inspiring.
It's a positive message. And one of the main things that we've really coalesced around was that the Drawdown and this film was also inspired largely by Project Drawdown. Is a different kind of messaging than the doom and gloom that we've all been aware of and hearing for a long time. Like, you better change or you're going to die. And this is all about how look at the great opportunities that are there for all of us.
For all of us, individuals.
By doing things that achieve drawdown, which is drawdown is the point when atmospheric concentrations of heat-trapping gases peak and then start to come down on a year after year basis. And that can be done with photosynthesis because plants and soil
absorb carbon.
That's what they're made of.
And they give us oxygen.
That's what they're made of, and they give us oxygen.
Yeah. So it turns out that seaweed, like this sugar kelp that grows everywhere, it's delicious to eat. It's wheat colored, like your vest, and it grows 1.5 feet a day. And it absorbs 5 times more carbon than what, a big tree or
plant-based plants
per acre than pretty much anything else. Yeah,
and
it's really effective.
Kelp too, and kelp that we have here. There was an article in the East Hampton Star in the commentaries. Everybody, you can look it up on the East Hampton Star about kelp. which grows from November to May, so it doesn't interfere with fishing or anything, and we have it right here.
Recreation,
and it's
yeah.
delicious too. I mean, you can buy it and sprinkle it. So healthy.
You can
Seaweed
use it
is so
for
healthy for
all
you.
kinds of other stuff too. Like
Loaded
they use
with
it in
probiotics.
insulation. They make Scott himself, who wrote the piece that you're referring
Scott
to,
Bludorn wrote
has
the
used
article.
it to make lamps. They use it
Lamps? What do you
for
mean make
cosmetic
lamps?
projects. You go, I'm sure on his website you can see it.
Shades or what do you
Yeah,
mean?
like lampshades.
Lampshades. Okay, I don't think you can make a light bulb out of kelp.
No.
Boing. So I have a Greta Thunberg a quote here that was also in a signaling virtue, I guess, which I forget the name of the guy that wrote it, but we know who it is. The real danger is not inaction. The real danger is when politicians and CEOs are making it look like action is happening when in fact nothing is being done. And that's Greta Thunberg in front of the UN, 17 years old. And that's what the senators, Congress not as bad because they represent the people, a lot of people, but the senators, they're bought and sold by the corporations. So they fight with each other and they act like they're trying to get something done, but they don't really want to get anything done because then they'll lose the money from the lobbyists and the corporations. So now this drawdown, this is what we each as an individual can do. And one of the biggest things I learned from your event was that, and I myself do it, I buy way too much food. And then you don't eat it. I'm at least feeding the deer and the raccoons, but still, the planet is set up to work. There is enough food out there for every being. And, and human beings can't screw it up fast enough.
Yeah, so one of the things, the Project Drawdown was a research project that identified the 80 existing best opportunities for either preventing emissions from going up into the atmosphere or for, like we were saying, drawing them down. They ranked them from the most, biggest opportunities and down of the top 80. And reducing food waste was the number
right
3 opportunity.
Yeah.
Which really changed a lot of people's understanding about, we all assumed, I did, because I've been on the Energy Sustainability Committee in East Hampton for many years.
You pitched the first land
farm?
that was bought for the community preservation.
Land conservation,
yeah.
That's another sort of aspect of it, which is preservation of land and regenerative land use. But food waste, really surprised a lot of people as being such an enormous use of resources. And just to distinguish food, it's food loss. There's the pre-consumer food waste that never gets to be to the table. There's the waste that happens that people buy and don't eat, and then there's after you don't eat it, what you throw out. It's the first 2 stages, the pre-consumer and the consumer stages, that constitute the number 3 solution. Composting is really important, either food scraps or that which is thrown out. And that's in the number 60th solution, and that prevents methane from going up. But a lot of people think about food waste as the end of the stream. It's really the beginning of the stream, and if we just diverted 1/4 of the food that is wasted, we could solve world hunger. That's what's so amazing.
Whatever happened to the Hunger Project? I mean,
well, there's a lot of efforts to take food that would otherwise be wasted and to divert it to the food insecure. We're actually working on an initiative to bring this group that does food rescue and has a cool technology for that. But anyway, so food is a really important.
Geraldine, I think, made a slide of your graph of the food waste, and the top 1% waste the most, and it goes down to the poorest people waste the least, of course, because they
I think
eat
that's a
everything.
consumption metric that you're talking about, but that's a big deal. But did you have something to say?
Yeah, what did you say?
I was wondering if you would tell them about not only your program that you're doing for individuals reducing their food waste, but bringing institutions together. So that conversation has started about how we can channel reductions in food waste with them as well.
Yeah, so the idea is that we started thinking about, so the idea, the big theme is that we are the most powerful solution to global warming. And especially those of
billions of us.
Well, but especially those of us who live on the east end of Long Island. And the reason is because, as you were pointing out with that graph about consumption, the wealthiest 10%, and we're almost everybody in this community is not just
doing
the
well.
wealthiest 10%, we're the wealthiest 1%. In the world, that threshold is very low. But we have the biggest carbon footprints of anybody in the world.
Wow.
And instead of blaming ourselves for that, we can use that to realize that if we can be the cause of the things that are not working, we can be the cause of the things that are the solution.
Yeah.
Like as long as we blame it on on China and India, then
we're doing nothing.
We give our power away.
The inaction.
And the reality is that on a consumption basis, they produce a lot of energy, but a lot of the energy China produces, for instance, or I should say emissions, is to produce steel and concrete that they export to us. So from a consumption standpoint, we're the biggest people in this community, among the biggest people.
Yeah.
And we're also, a lot of the biggest people who have the most influence in business live out here, and a lot of the most socially influential people in the world live out here. So right under our nose in this community, we're the most powerful solution to global warming. And so to get back to what you were saying is, in the food sector, we said, well, let's start with the individual choices that we make, but then let's go, who knows, I'm not a food expert, let's go to the food experts. And so we started to convene the people who are in the food supply chain, from the growers to the people who are processing it, like the East End Food Institute is, and there's a Share the Harvest group at the Eco Farm on Newtown Lane. Those guys are really being a great bridge between the food that could be eaten but is not, and the people who need it, by helping to process the food so that it can, because sometimes there's an abundance in the summer but people need it in the winter.
Yeah.
So they're working, so we convened that group of people on the East End, and that's one of a number of the initiatives that we're working on.
So not just what individuals can do. One of the caveats is they chose things that don't require policy. But it's not just on the individual level. It could be on a community or an organizational or a business level as well.
It's remarkable. So there's 80 solutions.
And of those, we've sort of isolated 32 that we're looking at out here. And we have one group that's our policy team. And so, for example, we've started with the Township of Southampton, and we're looking at the comprehensive plan for the town of Southampton, and the solid waste management plan, and the Sustainability 400 plan, and seeing how these 30 solutions overlay with what the town says it wants. And since this comes from prioritization, then we can look at what policies might be prioritized for the largest impact.
Very
Cool. It's regionalizing the 80 solutions they've come up with. We're looking at, and they are actually, that's Drawdown 1.0. I don't know if we ever did put this up. So
Drawdown, yeah.
So Project Drawdown 1.0 was figuring out what the global, most biggest opportunities are. And Drawdown 2.0 that the research team themselves are working on is how to regionalize those solutions. So what Darr just described is exactly what the whole organization is working on.
So this was a New York Times bestseller. Is it still on the bestseller list? When did this book come out?
It is.
It came out 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So who was the person that started Drawdown?
Paul Hawken.
Paul Hawken.
Do you remember
and
Paul
Amanda
Hawken? Ravenhill.
Ravenhill, who's a cool woman and has an amazing poem performance speech on Earth and our relationship to it. But anyway, Paul Hawken.
So Paul Hawken started Erewhon back when he was about 19 or 20 years ago.
I remember Erewhon, yeah.
And then he founded the gardening supply called Smith and Hawken. And so he's been into environmental concerns forever and kept saying, hey, who's doing an analysis here? How do we know what will really make a difference? And he could never find out the answer to that. So he took his life savings and put grant money together and invited other people and brought together 240 researchers and scientists and advisors and said, let's do the math. Let's figure out these 80 and 20 developing. And they spent 3 years, I think, analyzing all of this, and they got hopeful. But they had no idea that when they finally crunched the numbers for the final printing of this, sending it out, that actually we can reduce and reverse global warming.
By 2050, by
so
just scaling up
Yeah.
the existing technologies. And it's not always technologies. In fact, it's a lot of it is getting out of the way of the natural systems that provide
Mother
the life.
Earth takes care of
getting
things.
away
When there was
out
that
of Mother
oil
Earth's
spill
nature.
in Louisiana, it was algae that ate up the oil.
Exactly.
I mean, Mother Earth is incredible. It's all set up to work.
Yeah.
When you think about how magical it is, like apples in red packages and bananas in yellow packages and pears, it's like the Garden of Eden, really.
It is.
And we just plod through it and
came up with some screwy ideas.
And the planet is shifting. The planet is shifting. We can't do anything about that. But we certainly can clean up our air and our water and our food.
Well, you know, one of the things that you know, Paul Hawken articulates, which I've felt, you know, has resonated with me, and he, you know, he's really good at articulating things, is that, you know, global warming is just feedback. It's just sort of the natural process of the Earth.
Yeah, it is a natural process.
Trying to go back into balance, and it's feedback for us, if you personalize it, saying that you know, the choices that we've been making, the collection of all of the choices that we're making, which have been indifferent to our, we've put money in front of survival, basically, are creating results that are basically undermining all of our, you know, our lives. I mean, our ability to survive, and so it's giving us an opportunity to snap out of it and get a lot of things right. And this is also really compelling because Drawdown is a singular affirmative goal rather than avoiding climate change or avoiding global warming. It's a positive thing that you want to work toward, and it has this tremendous cascading second and third order benefits, like you know, two of the biggest solutions relate to educating girls, and supporting women in family planning, and those are just climate solutions. But of course, those have enormous benefits that, you know, are incalculable in terms of how they help humanity. But you can think about them, and you can think about food waste, and you can think about energy policy. You can think about transportation in terms of one thing, which is reducing, which is achieving drawdown. So it's interesting. It sort of combines all of these things that have been felt like they were fragmented, but now they're all under one roof.
And they all bring economic and physical health.
Yeah.
Right.
As well.
Do you remember the book Diet for a Small Planet?
Yeah.
Sure.
That was one of the first, and The Greening of America. Those were the first books that the Diet for a Small Planet, when you see that one cow eats like 6 acres of alfalfa and you get like, you know, 20 pounds of beef.
Yeah.
And they've eaten like thousands of pounds of alfalfa. It's a protein factory in reverse.
Yeah, the calories are the most inefficient thing. I mean, you know, plant-based diets is the number 4 solution.
Yeah, yeah, and so much healthier for us. And the whole farm-to-table thing is great because no chemicals and
buying local, farm-to-table. Yeah, buying local is so much more efficient and it's so much healthier. For anybody who's interested in having an interesting window into plant-based diets, there's a movie out called Game Changers. It's on Netflix.
Oh, Game Changers?
Especially the demographic that eats the most meat, which are young men. It really targets them because it talks all about how athletic performance is enhanced by plant-based diets. There are a lot of badass athletes that are on that are all totally plant-based.
And yeah, you hear when you see their interviews on TV, a lot of them are even vegan now. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they show why.
So you're pulling together a lot of different groups and organizations to all get on board. What do you? The event on Saturday, you had breakout groups. What were some of the things that people were saying that they were like so surprised about and that they're going to implement out here in their own lives?
Well, there were so many people surprised about the reducing food waste.
Yeah.
That's a #1
Yeah, I was
solution.
surprised,
Just
yep.
really amazed people.
Yep.
And they walked out saying, I'm going to change the way that I buy food, and I'm going to plan my meals so that I'm not throwing food away. There were a lot of inspirational quotes from people. They felt like they were going to change their lives.
Yeah.
Really, it impacted them that way.
Well, the plastic thing, you've been on that for a long time, stopping plastic. We got a Brita, we stopped buying the bottled water. Like 20 years ago, I saw this scientist on David Letterman, and at that point, he was saying that the island of plastic in the North China Sea was larger than the state of Texas and a mile deep. Yeah. And so now that plastic has been in the ocean for so long, the salt is breaking it all up, and it's all in little tiny bits, and so it stops the natural photosynthesis, and the ocean bed is completely dead wherever there's plastic floating on top of the water, not to mention all the fish eating it.
And then we eat the fish.
And then we eat the fish. Yeah. And so now it's
called
micro.
Yeah.
So
it's at the bottom of the food chain. It's that's an example of feedback. I mean, like the irony of that you really have to be. So to answer your question about like what are people doing, we are, I think, in the beginning of. I think that the first stage is people waking up. I say that there's a solution sequence, and the first is to wake up. Right, and like I love fig Newtons, and one day I realized I was reading about palm oil, and they said that in the Newman's Own fig Newtons they have this conflict palm oil, and I was like, I know that palm oil is destroying Indonesian rainforests and the pygmy elephant and the Siberian tiger and the orangutans, but I love it. So cognitive dissonance, which is what I think. So I had to wake up to that. Then I had to learn about so what are my alternatives? Where else can I find a better fig Newtons? Then I got to take responsibility for making the change. Identify the other fig Newton, and then actually follow through on making that choice. And I think that's what everybody has to do. And we're in the beginning of that process with bringing awareness, and people are waking up and now starting to identify the specific things. And there are. There's purchases that we do as individuals, and products, equipment, and services are more binary. You get a water filter, and all of a sudden, boom, all of the plastic bottles and all the energy to bottle it and ship it and petroleum for the bottles, that stops. Yeah. And that's an easier thing to measure. But then there's other things like food waste, which is more behavior. It's a little harder to measure. And identify, but there's a lot of intelligence, like that waste-free kitchen handbook that is published by the lady who worked at the Natural Resources Defense Council is a great handbook for anybody who wants to learn about habits. But anyway, so this and I want to give Darr a tremendous amount of credit. This festival that we had the other day, where there were 650 people in the middle of January that came.
That's cool.
I don't think what else could you get 650 people, and they came to the what do you call it, the World Cafe.
World Cafes. Yeah.
And to the
celebration. We had a band afterwards with our supervisor, Jay Schneiderman.
I think that's indicative of that. People really want to be engaged in this, and I'm really proud of the community. I'm really proud of you.
Well, thank you very much. It was our committee that did it.
For making all of this happen. And I think that we're in the midst of people learning what specific things they can do personally, and then how they can join with these initiatives to forward things in our community. And then we're going to be doing these drawdown drinks. Maybe Darr can talk about a few of the things that we have coming up, where we're going to probably pair those with instant actions, which are like writing a letter or doing something that's really meaningful to use our collective voice to support policies, to support
because we can talk about it all we want, but unless we do something.
Right, we have to do something ourselves, make choices. It boils down to the choices that we make and our circle of influence, talking to other people, and then goes all the way to policy. And the politicians, Jay Schneiderman was at the band, and he said it every time I hear politicians talk. They always say, we need you guys out there in the world to tell us what you want us to do.
But we could show him that there's interest. I mean, that day showed him that.
Oh, it sure did.
So that was really powerful, I
That was
think.
a huge turnout. It was really great.
I wish I had read more of the submissions that were on that board. I don't know if you saw where they were stickums, but there were 150 ideas people individually had and said, I'm doing this. So at one point we're going to collate
from watching
those.
the film and from the talk breakout
so there was
sessions.
a lot of commitment going outward.
I saw.
Really great.
I remember a bunch of them were compost. A bunch of them were going to plan my
planting
food
trees.
We
planting
My
trees.
husband is
Yeah.
going to plant trees. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a variety of stuff, and so we're being deliberate. Like we have an energy initiative, and I've identified a very good list of things that people can do that are specific choices that have a measurable impact on reducing greenhouse gases. And typically, if it's a product, equipment, or service, well, if it's equipment or services, those things tend to cost you some money in the beginning, but save you a lot
in
over
the end.
the time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Is that all? And so I got on the website drawdowneastend.org, but I didn't. Will there be these lists on that website?
We're starting.
They will be coming.
Yeah,
It's coming.
yeah.
So
One of the
work in
programs
progress.
that we're kicking off tomorrow is Drawdown 100 Women for Women.
Oh,
And the idea behind that is that educating girls and educating women about family planning issues is #1 solution. #3 solution is reducing food waste, which is mostly women-centric. And #4 solution is plant-rich diet, which was mostly women-centric. And as consumers, we choose 83% of all the consumer goods in the United States, in the country that has the largest emissions per capita. So if we combine all those together, we look at the impact that we can have, like Krae was talking before. Instead of looking at us as the problem, we can look at ourselves as the solution in a huge way. So we're starting monthly meetings. Starting tomorrow will be an introduction, and then we'll have them ongoing with educational components and opportunity to learn and to plan and commit, things like that.
well, we are running out of time.
Okay.
But I really
note to
want
end it
people
on.
to come to the Southampton Arts Center Friday night at 7 o'clock to see what is the name of the film?
2040.
Oh, 2040. Okay, it's fantastic and it's free.
Yes.
And everybody should come.
Yeah,
and
it's
this
a good
is
inspirational film.
Such good work. I'd love for you guys to come back.
Sure.
And we'll talk because there's so much to cover here.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for all
Thank
the
you
good work
very
you do.
much.
Thanks for
Thanks
giving
for
us the
having us.
Really
opportunity
great
to talk
having you.
about it.
So thank you for joining us at the Ladies' Room. Give yourself lots of room to plan your menus now and don't waste food. Room for fun, room for love, room to grow, and room to glow. And you will be glowing if you eat a plant-based diet, for sure. Skin healthier, hair healthier, thinner, all good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Breathe in. Breathe in. Oh, couldn't stop here. Couldn't stop, no, couldn't